This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today. I'm your host, Jay Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have a great episode with Scott Graham of Walden, Colorado, and North Park Anglers. Scott is the Orvis 2015 Outfitter of the Year, and he produces some of the best fishing pictures on Instagram. And I've got several mutual friends that know Scott Graham very well, and I look forward to talking with him about his operation up there in Walden and all the tactics and techniques that are used in the area, streamer fishing and dry fly fishing, and it's going to be a great episode. I want to thank our sponsors, GoHunt.com Insider, for their support of the title sponsorship of this podcast. Go check them out at GoHunt.com/insider. An interesting story that came across today on GoHunt.com is the Wyoming Super Tag raffle raises $641,950 for wildlife in Wyoming. It says here a total of 50,485 raffle tickets were sold this year, and separate raffles were held for each big game species. So I want to also remind you about the Arizona Big Game Super Raffle. The deadline is coming up here on July 10th. The mail orders are due, and on the online sales end on the 12th of July at 10 p.m. There's some great hunts that you can win, and it's a great support for our state and the animals that we love to hunt. I also want to thank Deadeye Outfitters. They are a hunting lifestyle company, apparel company, and they do a great job creating real high quality images on their shirts, t-shirts, and hoodies. They have the license to create all the Boone and Crockett apparel. So help support Boone and Crockett, because that is one of the leading hunting conservation organizations in the country, and I know Deadeye is excited to be a part of Boone and Crockett Apparel, and I just want to thank Deadeye Outfitters for stepping up and being an additional sponsor of this podcast. They have offered a promo code JScott. If you type that in when you order, you will get 10% off of your order, and that is a great way to support a great company that is. They're all hunters. Every one of them's a hunter, and what a better way to support hunting by buying lifestyle apparel, hunting apparel gear, and supporting hunters. So, guys, I want to thank you for your support of this podcast. I'm recording this on July 8th. Everybody's getting excited for their Dall sheep, stone sheep hunts that are all kicking off here this month and next month, and a bunch of archery deer hunts and archery elk hunts and all the hunts coming up this fall. So it's shaping up to be another great fall and a great magical time that we all look forward to taking part in. So guys, let's get right to the episode. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we're fortunate to have Scott Graham. Scott Graham is a fly fishing guide out of Walden, Colorado. He operates North Park Anglers. And Scott Graham, North Park Anglers, was just recognized as the 2015 Orvis Outfitter of the Year. Scott's got a great operation up there in the Walden area, and we're excited to talk to him today about the fishing opportunities that he has up in that area. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Scott, why don't you start out by telling the listeners where you're located and maybe where where your location is in reference to, say, Denver and Rocky Mountain National Park and maybe some of the other areas that people would be familiar with?
Yeah, sounds great. We are located in North Park, which is in north-central Colorado, right along the Continental Divide on the Front Range or Eastern Front. We are about 2.5 hours northwest of Denver. We are directly 100 miles west of Fort Collins. And to the west of us is Steamboat Springs. South of us would be Granby and Winter Park. And to the north of us is Laramie, Wyoming. The Wyoming border is actually the northern rim of our county, Jackson County.
Okay, and Scott, most people that would come up and fish with you, if they were flying into, say, Denver, how would they go about accessing Walden by way of vehicle?
There's a couple ways to get here real easy. One would be from Denver heading directly west on I-70 and going Berthoud Pass through Winter Park and Granby, and then Highway 125 between Granby and Walden. That's about 3 hours from DIA, maybe about 2 hours and 45 minutes from Denver. But you definitely want to avoid the mountain traffic on Fridays and Sundays. So, in that time frame, we send people up either through Laramie, Wyoming, or Fort Collins, which is mileage-wise just a little bit further. But if you're avoiding traffic, it can save you some time.
Awesome. And, I haven't been up to fish with you, nor have I been to Walden yet, but we have mutual friend Giannis Patelis, producer at the Meat Eater, and I believe you used to guide with Giannis over in the Eagle River Valley, and you guys are good friends, and I know you do a bit of hunting and do a bunch of fly fishing. What brought you to the Walden area? What drew you to that area?
It was I was in school at Colorado State University, and the spring semester was coming to a close, and didn't know what I was going to do for that summer, and just happened to be a little ad in the school paper that said fly fishing guide in Walden, Colorado. And throughout my entire childhood, my parents, my father and my grandfather had brought me to Walden to fish at some of the local reservoirs. So I knew the area, I knew it was good fishing, and I had fly fished my entire youth and never really thought about being a guide, but when the opportunity presented itself, it felt natural to me. And so I jumped on it and never left.
That's awesome. And what type of fishing does the Walden area have, and what kind of guided trips and such do you see yourself doing, or what do you do on an everyday basis?
So we're located at the headwaters of the North Platte River. So the North Platte starts here in the center of our valley, but we have a very unique and diverse fishery in that we have everything in this one bowl. Our valley is 60 miles long and 30 miles wide, and we're completely surrounded by mountains, which the scenery is beautiful, and there's only about 1,200 residents in the entire county in this million-acre valley. And so we've got high mountain lakes that completely surround the valley, and from the high mountain lakes we get a lot of different drainages that are flooding down into the valley and create these beautiful meadow streams. There's about 12 main meadow streams that stem in every direction, and they all meet up in the center of the valley and start the North Platte. And then we have the North Platte through the valley, about 20 miles of it, that's just a giant meadow stream. And at the very north end of our county, the North Platte goes through what's called Northgate Canyon, where we have an 18-mile long wilderness area that is rugged canyon as we have in Colorado, with Class 5 rapids and just beautiful scenery and great fishing. So our fishery is very diverse. We've got everything from high mountain lakes to alpine streams, a little bit bigger meadow streams, and all the way to the canyon, which is the big river that we float in rafts, and more typical of like the Gunnison Gorge and things like that. We also are very fortunate to have some very good stillwater fisheries. And in Colorado, there's a handful of really awesome, shallow, what we call sagebrush lakes that grow trophy trout. And here we have Lake John and the Delaney Butte Lakes, which combine are 4 awesome, stillwater fisheries that attract anglers from all over the country as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen some of the fish pictures over the years that you post on Facebook and on your website and such, and you guys definitely have some giant trout. Going back to what you were saying about the meadow streams, now what I take that as is kind of meandering, S-hooking, kind of just running through hayfield type areas, maybe hopper fishing. Can you allude a little or go into a little bit about the meadow streams that you're talking about?
Yeah, they exactly what you're saying. This valley, the valley floor here, is completely covered with ranches that are large hay meadows. Basically, this entire valley is one large hay meadow, and this entire valley is flood irrigated. And these meadow streams wind through these hay meadows. And the very, the unique thing about it is that all of the ranchers, flood their fields, and that could sort of be a double-edged sword as far as being good for the fishery and tough for the fishery. But for us, we think it's the reason why our fishery is so good. In the spring, when the water is, the ice is melting and the snow is melting, and the rivers are gaining speed, the ranchers turn these irrigation ditches on and they flood their meadows, and those meadows sort of act like a giant filter, and they clean. Not only do they clean the water and give the sediment a place to settle, but at the same time they warm the temperatures, and as the water returns to the rivers, not only is it coming in at a more optimal temperature for trout to be happy to feed, it's also carrying tons of food such as leeches and worms and just other things that are living in these fields, a lot of mice, and just a lot of biomass for the fish to really start eating sooner than they would in the typical situation of a freestone system. As far as, stuff that we use for the fish and to catch the fish in the meadow streams, I would say, it's early season, it's a meat fishery. Before runoff, when the ranchers really start to turn their irrigation on, we're throwing a lot of worms, a lot of leeches, a lot of crayfish patterns, a lot of streamers. The fish are happy because the water temps are up. The rivers are generally bank full or a little flooded, but the rivers are clear. So bigger patterns seem to work really well. But as the ranchers start to cut these hay fields and turn irrigation off and the fields really dry up, we get a lot of hopper action. We get a lot of ant and beetle action. There's a lot of willows that are incorporated in the meadow streams, and the amount of spiders and bees and different bugs that live in the willows that fall into the river is pretty astonishing, and it's amazing what the trout eat other than just the bugs that hatch and hoppers.
So they're pretty opportunistic feeders, and I would assume with all of that feed that you're talking about, the fish get big. Is the fishery primarily half and half, rainbows and browns, or what type of fish do you have there?
It's I would say park wide it's very diverse, but as far as the meadow streams go, it's definitely a brown trout fishery. The Colorado Parks and Wildlife does stock rainbows along the North Platte, but they don't stock any of the meadow streams. And I think it was in the late 70s when the Colorado Division of Wildlife decided to stop stocking the North Platte in the canyon, and then in these tributaries as well. And they're just kind of non-native wild trout fisheries. And because of the irrigation, our water temps get pretty warm here in the valley. And so the brown trout seem to do very well, but the rainbow trout are more susceptible to, not doing as well in the warmer water temperatures. But as you climb up the meadow streams to where they're more alpine streams. We have a lot of brook trout, some cutthroats, and then down in the canyon where it seems to get a lot more shade, the rainbows definitely thrive down there.
That's great. And Scott, you have private water, private meadow streams, private lakes also, I assume, that you fish. But is there a fair amount of public access for those listeners that just want to come up and enjoy the Walden area? Are there public put-ins and takeouts or walk and wade type areas?
Yeah, there is. It's as far as a public fishery goes, it's really, I'm not going to say undiscovered, but it hasn't been publicized like some of the other places in the state. And so as far as
until the 50 million people that listen to my podcast hear this.
Yeah, you got that right. So there's not a lot of maps, there's not a lot of signage, and with kind of the onset of the new mapping software and phone applications, anglers are getting a better idea of where this stuff is. But really and truly, this park is about 2/3 public land, and there is a lot of access. Now, all of it is not great year round. You definitely need to know when to go, but there is a ton of great public fishing. When you look at this park as a whole, I think that an angler could fish here every day in the summer and always be seeking new waters. I've been here for, this will be my 13th season, and every year I find stuff that I haven't. I'm like, wow, I cannot believe that I, have not fished this area yet. So
That's awesome.
There's a lot of public water. It's very diverse. As far as floating goes, in the valley here itself, there is no put-in and takeouts. It's completely private. There are some public areas that you could wade fish, but there's really no floating. But as you get into the canyon, right at the north end of our valley, like I said, there's an 18-mile wilderness area, and you can put in at there's Northgate route boat launch at the top, and then there's a 10-mile float down to 6 Mile Gap. At 6 Mile Gap, you've got another 10 miles down to Prospect Creek. And then from Prospect Creek, you could go 18 miles to Bennett Peak. From Bennett Peak, you go 13 miles down to Treasure Island, and then another 15 miles to Saratoga. So, there is a lot of great floating along the North Platte, just north of us.
Wow, that sounds unbelievable. And all fishing water? I mean,
it's all, all the way to I-80, really, past Saratoga, another 30 miles. It's great trout water. I would say the canyon stretch is about 20 miles long, and then you get into these big ranch lands down towards the Saratoga Valley that are, lined with cottonwoods, about 1,500 feet lower elevation than where we are now. But all the way to the town of Saratoga is classic trout, blue ribbon fishing.
What is the altitude for Walden?
We sit right at the valley floor is 8,000, and our highest peaks surrounding are 12,900.
So I mean, even in the summer and the hot temperatures, 8,000 feet, your nights you cool off really nice.
We do. I would say by the first or second week of August, we've had our first freeze, and the mosquitoes are going away, and water temps are getting cooler day by day. Every year, I would say that the heat of our summer is like that last 2 weeks of July. But then we start really cooling down big time come August 15th.
So what are we looking at right now? Is it already fishing well, or is your prime season in front of you? And can you walk through kind of the situation that we're in now there and what you anticipate, say, over the next couple of months?
Yeah, Colorado's got crazy weather, as we all know. In general, if you looked at, an average, we're a little bit behind, maybe a week or two, but our river is sort of peaking as we speak and on its way down. Fishing in our smaller meadow streams is very good because the water is a little, bank full, crystal clear and it's getting that irrigation return. And the North Platte is big, but at the same time it's on the way down and it's clearing. And this river is just it fishes really well after the peak and as it's coming down, especially in that canyon area because of the structure along the banks. Streamer fishing to the banks, and we get the salmon flies, and now we're moving into golden stones, and soon we'll have green drakes. And so I would say right now, as far as our river fishing goes, we just peaked, and everything from today forward looks awesome. It's just going to get better and better until about mid to late July, and then we kind of hit our summer doldrums, and that's when we sort of seek the alpine streams. We'll start to fish some of the high country lakes for a couple weeks, and then we'll get back on the streams come the first, second week of August, once we start getting those cooler nights and our temperatures come down, and then we sort of head into trico season, and after trico's blue wings and, the September and October fishing up here with the amount of brown trout we have and brook trout is fabulous. As far as our lakes are concerned, right now we're finishing with the chironomid hatch, which is super popular with our stillwater anglers, and we're sort of transitioning into calabatus and damsels, and we'll ride that into mid-July, and then the terrestrial fishing gets insanely good at the lakes as well. And then same thing, the lakes are a little tough towards the end of July, and they really start to pick up again first couple weeks of August when, things start cooling off and water temps get more favorable for the fish.
Do you have streamer fishing opportunities kind of all summer long, or would you say more like right now and before the water really drops? What's your take?
Yeah, I would say because of the way that our trout feed, we always have streamer fishing. The streamer fishing is really good right now. Anytime the rivers are kind of swollen, it seems to me like a lot of the fish in the meadow streams, which is makes up most of the water in the valley, live in these big cut banks. And when the rivers get low or lower, those browns will kind of hide in the cut banks until it's time to eat, and they'll come out, and eat and go back in. Whereas this time of year, when the rivers are big, they feel more comfortable to be out and about and give you more opportunity. So I think the streamer fishing, is definitely, there's an opportunity for it from April until we freeze in late November, early December, but definitely, late May to early to mid-June is fabulous streamer fishing, and then again September, October.
Awesome. So let's talk a little streamer fishing, as I know you like to do. What is your go-to color? And let's just talk in generalized terms, maybe for your water there. And then maybe would it change if, say, you're on the Eagle or the Roaring Fork or some of the other Colorado rivers? What is your favorite color?
Yeah, for me it's white. And for a couple reasons, really. One, because I can see the fly, so I can see how it's reacting to, the current conditions or flows. And I just feel like these fish eat so many bait fish that white's a color that they look at quite often. And then, I throw a lot of yellows and browns and olives and black too. But for me, white is definitely my favorite. And before I'll switch colors, I kind of switch size and weight. I really feel like, white's my go-to. It's where I always start. And a lot of the guys that work for me, we all have our go-to patterns and colors, but white across the board seems to be one of our better patterns. Across the state, when I was on the Eagle and Roaring Fork rivers, I used a lot of white there as well, and seemed to do really well. For me, I think when the river is big and those fish are out and kind of have their guard down, something that I do, and a lot of guys do, is I like to use something big and flashy up front and something small and more subtle and behind it. I feel like the bigger, brighter fly is going to grab their attention. And when I fish a single big fly, I feel like a lot of times I get fish to come check it out, but I don't necessarily get a lot of fish to eat. And if I hang that smaller presentation back behind there, I feel like they'll come see and investigate that big fly, but they have no problem eating that smaller one.
So you might throw a big kind of white flashy streamer, and then you might, like 15 inches back or so, you might throw kind of a smaller, kind of maybe a olive or a kind of a more natural bait fish looking color.
Definitely.
And kind of a smaller, wispier little kind of morsel of a fly.
Exactly. One of my favorite rigs is like a size 4, conehead white bugger, and 15 to 18 inches behind it, I'll have a size 12 or 14 olive bugger.
And do you find on that setup most of the hookups are in the mouth and on the second fly?
Yeah, definitely.
And do you think that most of the time that white one actually got their attention, but they just went ahead and hit the smaller one?
Yeah, that's my thinking. A lot of times when you're floating and the fish are stuck on the banks, I think the fish will be chasing that top fly, and then you hook them anywhere with that second fly. But when we're wade fishing and we have a better presentation, I think that bigger front fly definitely grabs their attention, and it just seems to me that every time they eat that smaller second fly.
Yeah. I love streamer fishing. Scott, I think I know the answer to this, but do you notice a certain condition as far as sunny or cloudy streamers working better or worse, and why?
I definitely do, and I think on the average, sunny days are tougher and cloudy days are better. But I think that water temperature and clarity has a lot to do with that. If it's, for us, our river is always a little stained, whether it has something to do with irrigation or just the silt that we have here, I'm not sure. But for us, on a really sunny day, the streamer fishing is generally not as good. And it can be fairly decent on, just dead drifting streamers, a more subtle presentation. But as far as slapping the banks and ripping it back, on a bright sunny day, we seem to struggle with that sort of presentation. Whereas a cloudy day or late in the day or real early in the day, the fish, I feel like, are definitely, more apt to chase further, to really leave their lie and come investigate, with more reckless abandon than they would when it's bright and sunny and, the opportunity for predators or anyone or anything to really, see them, letting their guard down is better. So I definitely feel like when it's a bright sunny day that the streamer, for me, is not as good. I do, sort of feel like on the sunnier it is, the darker colors, and the darker it is, the brighter colors. But, if I kept a log over the last 10 years, I think that would all even out anyway.
Yeah, sure. With this golden stone hatch the salmon flies are done in your area, correct?
Yeah.
And with this golden stone coming on, what is your favorite imitation dry fly pattern for that golden stone?
There's a lot of really good foam patterns that the different companies have. For me personally, I like a golden or yellow stimulator. I don't think you can get any better than that. It's a real fluffy presentation, and all of these stoneflies, when they're on the water and susceptible to trout, are doing anything and everything they can to get out of the water. So they're a real active bug. So that displacement of the deer hair on the stimulator really represents that pattern well. Some of the foam stuff that we use from Montana Fly Company and Solitude Fly Company works really well too, but a lot of those patterns I feel are just too spot on, and I think the more subtle look of that stimulator for us here, it makes that fly work so much better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like fishing a stimulator also. What size typically are your golden stones? Obviously, they're pretty big.
Yeah, they're
what size?
10 and 12.
Okay. Okay, and then I hear you say you have a green drake hatch. Typically, on an average year, how long does your green drake hatch last?
Not long enough.
It never is it?
It's like the salmon flies. We say June 2nd. Give it a week or two, they're going to happen. And same with green drakes. It's July 4th for us. And I would say until we get, if weather's okay, around we get about 7 to 10 days of it, and then it just kind of peters. But when they come off, I mean, they reward us as anglers, I guess, because they're so big and beautiful, and the fish are just clueless, and they love to eat them.
Yeah, a good green drake hatch is pretty hard to beat. Speaking of the green drake hatch, so what I found a lot of times is green drakes will come off, say 10 to 2, and then a lot of times in the evening again, right at dark. How do you approach your green drake fishing as far as if the adults are not on the surface of the water yet? Do you fish like a cripple and a merger of some sort, or do you go straight nymphing until the hatch starts, or what do you do?
Yeah, I would say it's different for, I guess, the clients that are fishing with us that day. But in general, for us here, generally our PMDs and yellow sallies are coming off pretty strong early, and we can get a few fish fishing a PMD and a yellow sally in tandem. If I've got clients that really need to catch fish and they could care less about getting them on the dry until the hatch really gets going, nymphing a prince nymph and a pheasant tail real high in the water column is hard to beat. Those fish they know that hatch is happening. The nymphs are working their way to the surface, and sort of like the salmon fly hatch, right before the bugs really start coming off, I think is when the fish are eating the strongest. And the same with the green drakes. I feel like if I can talk somebody into doing a little nymph fishing, not far below the surface in that first 3 feet of the water column, with a prince nymph and a pheasant tail or some of the better green drake patterns, they're going to catch a lot of fish.
Absolutely. I love that time when the fish are really, suspended and really keyed in on the nymphs. And, you mentioned something there, PMDs. I'd like to hear about your favorite PMD pattern, and then something to me that I've never been good and been able to pinpoint is the yellow Sally hatch. I see the Sallies coming off, but it seems as though I've never really found the adult, the dry fly yellow Sally that they really key in on. Can you give me some advice there?
Yeah, I'm in that same arena with you. I've seen killer caddis hatches. I've seen killer PMD hatches. Blueing olives, the whole gamut. I can't say that I've ever, been in a blizzard yellow Sally hatch. But I do see a lot of them on the water, and I know that the fish here do eat them, and there's days when, the fish are rising like crazy, and I'll feed them, a PMD and a caddis because those bugs are coming off too, and they won't take it, and it's the yellow Sally that does the trick. So I don't feel like it's ever, kind of the staple, but there's times during the day when, the fish definitely either key in on that or, they're kind of in between feeding, but they will take a yellow Sally. I'm not sure, but it's definitely something that I carry on a daily basis and use a lot.
And the pattern you use for the adult yellow Sally, does it have a little red little red tail, usually yellow body with a little red tail?
Yeah, the best thing for me, again, is a stimulator, but I just take a yellow stimulator and I tie a red butt on it.
Okay.
So just buy a...
And pretty small, right?
Yeah, 14s and 16s.
Yeah.
And I just just put a hot butt with red, 10 turns of red thread, at the end of the fly, and it seems to just work just fine. As good
I'll
as
have to
any
try
of
that.
the, patterns that I've found.
Well, that's something I need to try because I like fishing stimulators. I like the way they float in the water, and I like what you're saying with the deer hair being kind of displaced. It does, I think, give a good, look to the fish, and certainly stimulators catch a lot of fish, so I'll have to try that on. I noticed down here in the Roaring Fork Valley when those sallies come off, it seems like it's just sunny and bright and hot. All of a sudden the sallies pour off, and I can honestly say I've not had a lot of success fishing when there's tons of sallies pouring off, but I'll have to try that yellow stimulator with a little bit of a red bud on it.
Yeah, it's nice, and you just take the stimulator right off the shelf and just put it in your vise. Like I said, 10 turns of red thread and some glue, and it works pretty good.
Talk to me about your fly shop and where your fly shop is located in the area there.
Okay, we're located in Walden, and Walden is at the very center of our valley, and it's the county seat. We are right on Main Street. You can't miss us. There's the town of Walden only has 500 residents. I think there's only a max of 10 businesses here, so you can't miss the building with a huge trout and antlers all over the front of it, right in the middle of town. We have a massive fly selection. That's sort of our staple, and what we're trying to be visible as having one of the better fly selections in the state. But we carry everything. We're an Orvis dealer. We are an Orvis endorsed outfitter, but we carry, everything from Scott fly rods to Nautilus reels and Sims waders and, all the great Orvis product as well. And we buy flies from all of the fly manufacturers, and we've got a great staff of fly tiers that work here in the store that tie bugs every day as well. Kind of our motto here at North Park Anglers is friendly advice. We want people to come into our store and to our valley and really feel like they could come in and ask us anything, and that, we're going to do our best to give you not only the best information and most accurate, up-to-date information, but a friendly in a friendly manner, and to make you feel comfortable to ask the questions and figure out where the good fishing is, because we understand that this is a big valley, and to find a good place to fish can be tough, and this is one of those places that I think 5 out of 10 people that come here don't come back because they end up on the wrong stream or the wrong lake at the wrong time. And when you have such a big valley and such a diverse fishery, it's nice to have a place to go and get pointed in the right direction. And in the end, I think that turns into more guide trips for us and more business. So we've got 6 guys that work full time, and we run float trips, wade trips, private water, public water, every day while we're here. And we've got lodging options available, and pretty much can, anybody that wants to come here and fish, we can point them in the right direction in one shape or the other.
Absolutely. How do people get a hold of you, Scott? Website,
the best,
Facebook?
Definitely the website or our Facebook or Instagram. We're really visible on the social media, but our website, northparkanglers.com, is great. We update our fishing report, pretty much daily during the season. And our phone number, feel free to call 970-723-4215. We're open every day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And Facebook, it seems like these days, that's the easiest way for people to shoot us a quick and easy question without having to pick up a phone and call, every day we get different threads going on about, how the canyon's fishing or what the lakes are doing, or, when is the ice coming off, or have we peaked yet? And so it's just kind of like a daily constant update of, conditions and what's happening.
That's great. Scott, I know you also like to hunt too. Have you drawn any tags, or do you have any upcoming hunts that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I do. We about 10 years ago, our deer herd took a pitfall from a couple bad winters in a row, and in the last 5 years, our mule deer population has jumped through the roof. I think it's as healthy as it's ever been. And I finally drew a mule deer tag here for 4th rifle season, so I'm super stoked about that. And my boss,
the dates are that, or what, mid-November, right during the rut?
Yeah, it's I think the date's the November 11th through the 15th.
Oh wow!
It's perfect. Our deer migrate north to Saratoga, but before they migrate, they rut in a few select areas, and I hope to hang out there for a little while this fall and find a nice buck.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I hope you get a nice one, and hopefully you get a lot of nice snowy weather and move those deer so they're real visible for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on with us and telling us about your valley and the fishing. And, I've admired the pictures for years and look forward to getting up there one of these days. And I wish you the best on your hunt, and thanks for, continuing to post and doing all the things that you do on social media. I know you stay up to date with it, and I think that's important.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. I had a great time, and all the best to you, and look forward to talking to you again.
All right, buddy. You take care, okay?
All right, you too. Thanks, Jay.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the J. Scott Outdoors Western Big Game Hunting and Fishing Podcast, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today.